going to be kind of a casual conversation. So one of the things I've been struggling with in the last year, and it's really been on my mind, and I've done a lot of thought and analysis, you're so expensive. Why is quality worth it? How much does it cost? Oh my God, really? We have to spend that much money? Oh my God, you've cost so much money. And it's like really, what they're really not looking at the right viewpoint. They're looking at it from how much they've spent, not to how much they didn't spend. And so I was trying to figure out, how do I explain that to somebody? One, I always get doctors who've never been part of a QMS. And so the sticker shock is always kind of surprising to them. So I've been looking at it, and I've come up with a deck for us to have a fireside conversation today. And then I've got some real data that I've put together at the end. It'll kind of be a little bit of a shock to you. It was to me when I actually found it out. So how much does a QMS really cost? An arm and a leg is what I like to say. It's not the whole body, but it sure does get close. The QMS dilemma. Some companies overspend and buy tools. I literally know of a company that bought Master Control, didn't use it for 2 years, $30,000 a year, didn't use it for 2 years. They brought me in. I had to spend time and effort reconfiguring it, and then I had to release all their parts in 1 year, and like 6 months to 8 months part time, but a lot of money wasted there. Or they try to get somebody who's never done a QMS before to wing it. Like, oh, this can't be too hard. I can write these procedures. Anybody can do it, that kind of thing. Either way, it costs you time, trust, and sometimes market access. Here is the average scenario in the last 15 years that I've seen. Company sizes, they have anywhere from 5 to 20 FTEs, usually a class 2 device. Most of them are not software, but lately there's been a huge trend with all this AI focus. Now it's software. So there's a whole other software cost that needs to be calculated that's not part of this. I'm only focusing on QMS today. Usually it's a prototype to 510(k) submission, and usually it's a funding seed series. $1 to $10 million that they've collected for themselves. The average device takes 3 to 7 years to get approved and commercially launch. It still astounds me when people say we're going to be done in a year. It just never happens. You're not even thinking about the testing that has to be done. You're thinking about, oh, I'm going to design it. It's ready to go. So here's what I want to do. I want to do a little round robin for a couple minutes. You guys can put it in the chat. You guys can pop off. I'm really okay with it. What do you think the biggest costs are for a QMS? Anybody? Go ahead.
I have to ask for clarification. Are you talking about the actual QMS backend system doing all the documentation and work necessary to live in the QMS and be successful with the FDA? It's just a rabbit hole that goes on forever.
Yeah, see, that's the point. That's the whole point of the question. Is a QMS isn't just the back end. It's not just the procedures. It's not just it's everything. It's the labor. Here, let me go to the next slide. So actually, I'm going to jump to this one. Where's it at? All right, here, I'm going to jump to this one. Really, everybody thinks the QMS is a small piece of the pie. It's not. It's a bigger part of the pie. It's the resources, it's the system tools, it's the training and competencies, it's process documentation, it's compliance and audits. And in that bucket of compliance and audits is device testing, it's registration, it's inspections, it's, all the things you prepare to launch and get approved for your device. So that's typically where all those costs add up. Everybody thinks, oh, QMS, I'm going to buy it for $10,000. I'm going to put those procedures in place and we're good to go. That's not even the tip of the iceberg, in all honesty. So anybody think I've missed anything here?
Culture.
You're right, Mark. Yeah, that would, I think I bucket that into resources. And the reason, to me, resources is the top #1 cost of QMS. If you invest well in resources, you're going to get Mark's culture. You're going to get good procedures. You're going to get everything else falls into place if you get the right resources. So to me, that's the most critical element. It's not your procedures, because if you get a good resource, you're going to get good procedures, in all honesty. So I'm going to jump back.
Does that include the whole implementation thing, so that everybody gets to understand what they're doing? That's also in that bucket of resources.
So when you partner with Bushman QC, you not just get a consultant, you get your friend, you get your mentor, you get somebody who's going to teach you how to do DCOs, equipment, how to do supplier qualification. Because most of the time, people who get a QMS, they don't know anything. They're looking at 40 procedures, going, "Oh my God, there's an avalanche. I don't even know what to do with it." And what we do is we help you build the culture. We help you teach yourself how to do these things. And most of the time, one of the Bushman QC consultants is actually doing the work the first couple of times so that you can see the work being done and then you get to mirror it and ask questions. That's what's critical about it. You're not learning, like, you can go off being an engineer. There's 3 types of people that work with us. There's the type that say, "Nellie, I'm going to throw something over to the fence. Your team just takes it on." And that's great. But what happens is they learn about quality through like reverse osmosis because they see us doing it and they participate on the outside. Then there's others who've had a QMS, they come in, they participate, and then they may make changes. And then the third is, well, we're going to own the QMS and they're going to run with it. And usually those are the ones who are trying to launch a product and run the QMS. We end up coming in and remediating their QMSs, unfortunately. Any other questions?
I just want to say you have to have an evangelist at the company or it won't work.
I'm an evangelist. I'm good at it. Let me tell you, I can be a really powerful speaker.
Yeah.
So one of the things, like, this is where my journey started about a year ago when I started really thinking about how do I get people into early adoption of quality? How do I get them to realize that we're their partner, that we're their friend, we're their mentor? And I had to ask myself, what were my biggest challenges? And really, it's my number one is educating founders. They honestly think that they can implement a QMS tomorrow. They think they can just flip a light switch and it'll be there. And it's not. There's a lot of building blocks that go into it. And so what I've had to learn to do is frame the QMS to be we are your business accelerator. If you get us in early, guess what? By the time you're getting into your testing and your market launch, you're going to go faster. We're not going to have to remediate. We're not have to create design control documents. We're not going to have to, "Oh my God, you forgot to do this testing that takes 6 months to do because it's age testing," or something to that nature. So that was my biggest one. The other thing is that DIY. I love my quality engineers, and there's some really great ones who've built QMSs. But what I've learned is you need a special type of person to build a QMS. You need somebody who thinks in the 5th dimension. You need somebody who's a people person, who's a quality person, who's almost got a little bit of engineering. I'm not an engineer, but I understand what they need. Because when you do that, you build a QMS for a 7th grader. That's what I like to say. My system is built for a 7th grader. Anybody can use it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. It's not overcomplicated. It's like I have one field, you put this one entry in. If you read the title, you know exactly what you have to do. But so what they'll do is they'll give somebody who's never done it, and then all of a sudden you have an urgent issue. "Oh my God, we have an FTV inspection. And we don't have job descriptions. We don't have resumes because we didn't think about employee qualification. We didn't think about infrastructure. The building hasn't been qualified. We haven't done our HVAC. We haven't done, environmental controls. Those kinds of things create urgencies. Your budget and ROI. We have to constantly justify the cost. Now, later on, you're going to be shocked what I found out. Your fractional QMS saves you a lot of money. Because you're not paying benefits, you're not paying vacations, you're not paying employee taxes, that gets passed to your consultants. Long-term value, short-term versus long-term. Unfortunately, startups are always in the short-term frame of mind. And what they don't realize is that short-term frame of mind has regulatory gaps. It causes delays. It causes missing the market. There's all these hidden costs. So this was my biggest challenge, and this is why I started this journey of how much does a QMS really cost you? Any questions? Did I miss anything? Yeah, go ahead. Sean, you're on mute.
Yeah, this is Dan Barreto. From my experience, I think that part of the challenges that we have in the industry to implement quality systems, one is that there's too much focus on the process itself of putting the infrastructure without really understanding that that infrastructure in the end has to become a facilitator for, if it's a startup, for the development of new product. If it's a commercial operation, it's really to the manufacturing process. So it's not us, it cannot be us versus them, while the quality organization has to maintain a certain level of independence. It is still part of the business process, one where it really has to be collaborator, enforcer, overseer, facilitator, supporter. And I think that's sometimes, you know, people perceive the quality organization as the police officer, when in reality it's more than that. And if it's only a police officer, its value is highly diminished, and it becomes a costly effort.
Well, that's why I like to say we're your friend, your partner, and your mentor. I've never once said we're your police officer. I've never once said we're your warden, because really we're your partner. I mean, and we help you navigate the QMS in such a way that you become an expert by the time you're through with you're to the end of launch. You start out a novice, and by the time you're there, you're the one going, oh, wait a minute, I think we have an NCR. I think we have a CAPA. I think we have this, because you've learned along the way versus trying to do it all at once.
Yeah, and one thing that I forgot to mention also is that if the people in the quality organization do not understand or have the necessary process knowledge of what is being done at the site, whether it's development or the manufacturing. If I don't know the manufacturing process activities, how the hell can I help that manufacturing organization if I really don't understand exactly what they do and how they do it? So I think also what I see from my experience is that you have people running the quality organization and they have no idea of what the manufacturing group is doing. They have no idea of what the maintenance organization is doing. They have no idea of what the validation group is doing. So how can you support or even enforce something that you don't know anything about? So that's a problem.
I never use the word enforce, just FYI. I never use the word enforce. We are your partners in that. And to your point is that's where, quality comes in and helps write the manufacturing work instructions. They help write the LHRs. They help be part of the design control process. So I want to kind of go into, so I've talked about these 5 buckets, right? And this is where I've kind of boiled it down to, is these very 5 buckets. Resources, I think it's the most #1 area. If you don't have a quality system person that can't understand the manufacturing process, that can't understand design control needs, that doesn't understand what needs to go into a submission, you're lacking right there. You also need somebody who's not going to write an overly complicated procedure, so that internal label, make sure you've got the right design control team, but make sure you've got the right regulatory quality people on there as well. Consultants or contractors, I can't tell you how smart it is to actually consult out for quality, because one of the things about Bushman QC is I have 25 years experience. I counted it, been at 28 medical device companies, either in full employment or consulting. So that 28 clients of experience, you're not going to get with somebody who's been at who's had 8 companies they've worked with or 10 companies they've worked with. And also, getting the right people, it doesn't divert from development and compliance. So if you get the right RAQA person, your development team can do what they need to do and engage with your quality people. And then, I think Mark was the one who said it, you get this right, you get the right culture, you get the right support, you get the right procedures. Pasia, did I say that correctly? You've got your hand raised and you're on mute.
Oh, yes. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I just, this is just a comment on something that Dan also said, that this, notion of how this actually plays in when you're working with the startups. In my experience as a consultant, there's always, even though it shouldn't be so, there's this silo between how the development people want to do things and how they're actually doing things, and what the regulatory people are trying to understand and the quality people are trying to understand, and kind of making that work together. And a lot of it has to do with just a cultural gap, just understanding of what is the significance of this when we are already doing all the work. One of the discussions I had was, looking at the documentation as deliverables as opposed to outputs of the process. And one of the things that I spend a lot of time doing is to just explain that, this has to be the output of a process that where the work has been put in, et cetera, et cetera. But, this is the challenge that I think there, exists and is really at the core often of, why there are these issues.
Well, and that's kind of one of the things at Bushman QC I do is I make sure we have communication. Like for Bushman QC, we use Slack for dedicated channels, so we can actually have a conversation about, if we have a design review going on or we have a protocol going on, and we try to pull them into a communication scenario where that becomes part of the culture. Because one of the things, and I'm sure every quality person can be on this call will understand, is like, oh my God, we have a protocol, we need to release it tomorrow. And like quality is like, I've never seen it. I didn't even know it was coming. I didn't know that testing was required as part of our project plan, or it was due tomorrow. It's like quality gets involved in the project planning of the R&D product as well as just the QMS. So that's kind of, the resource question. Any other feedback? Anybody else want to talk about resources?
I think with resources, with this whole gambit, and I've just been reading up on this, a lot of this all comes down to quality culture and the fact that everybody's got to buy into the project or the process that's going on to produce the product that's part of the project.
Yep.
If you agree with that. I mean, you've got to have buy-in. You can't just have quality handle everything that's about quality. The whole team has got to know quality.
Yeah,
so,
I actually had a team that was very dysfunctional that when we were hired, they didn't have parts released. They were saying they're ready for V&V. And I came in, I go, you guys have nothing. You guys are in concept phase. And they were like completely shocked and they still resisted. I mean, I finally got I have a really great team member who's great at talking with engineers and getting them to release parts. Over hundreds of parts that they got released in 6 months. I had put one person on the project who was a little more inexperienced, wasn't able to pull it out of them. I then realized that person wasn't working, so I switched into another person, and she spoke engineer. And so she was able to take that team all the way to finish. Now, they created the drawings, but she pulled everything out of them. And that's kind of what we have to do, because some of your engineers are afraid of quality. They're afraid to be a part of the process because it's like, oh, it's extra work. I have to do a DCO form. I have to figure out what needs to inspect it. Oh, what do you mean the drawing needs to be standard and we all need the same template? That's kind of the things. And those are the basic stuff that you have problems with and that culture factor. So sometimes a part of the Bushman QC experience isn't just the procedures, it's me picking the right person that works with the engineers. And every company that I work with, I sit there and I go, okay, which person on my team is going to best match the team energy level that is already there, is going to go in and flow with them. And that's really neat about watching that experience.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to go to the next one because this is kind of my pet peeve, system tools. Okay, now, for the love of God, medical device startups, do not go buy an EQMS and think that's going to solve all your problems, because it doesn't. EQMS doesn't write your procedures. It doesn't put a process in place, and they are hardwired in. One of the things about virtual QMS, and Verna's experienced this, and she's been a couple of my clients, is I've got a client, they're like, oh my God, Nellie, this doesn't work for me. I need to adjust it. Okay, great. Give me a week. We'll rewrite the DCO. We'll update the procedure to meet your business needs. Because what people don't realize is you write the QMS to fit your needs. As long as it's compliant, it's okay. If it's written and you follow it, you're okay, as long as you're reading the regulatory intent. And so I will adjust it. Like I have 80% of my procedures, everybody adopts and doesn't change. 20% get changed because people have a little persnickities that they prefer to work within, and we can adapt to that. So we have a PQMS, a VQMS, and an EQMS. I'm always an advocate. If you're in a startup, you better be doing VQMS because you're going to save a lot more money. Electronic signature. Oh my God, please do not get me too started on this. I cannot believe I literally had somebody, one of my clients, my client for 5 years, he's tired of paying DocuSign, and he's not even paying the full sticker price. He's leasing it from me. And he's like, I've got to be able to find a free version. I'm like, there is not a Part 11 account out there that's free. There's not at all. No, and he goes, I'll find one. I go, good luck. So I'm still waiting for him to find one. It's been about 6 months. Document storage and backup. You know, you got to pick a good data storage. You know, is it SharePoint? Is it Dropbox? Is it Box? Is it? Please say it's not Google. Google's the worst platform. Sorry if you're a Google lover, but you can't validate it. I can tell you that as a quality person for recovery, I have never been able to recover a lost document off of Google Drive. Just as an
Amen. Amen. I agree.
And then integration with an ERP, PLM, or design control. A lot of people don't think about this. Bushman QC, we are working on different solutions on this right now. But how are you going to manage your inventory? Is it going to be an Excel document? If it's going to be an Excel document, are you going to need to validate it? Is somebody set it up well? Are you going to go to a parts box? Are you going to do, you know, how are you going to do that inventory management? Because now I don't have the locked-in solution, but that is something you should start to think about, how you want to interface with your finance team and your design control team and your manufacturing team on ERP. Anything on system tools I forgot?
I was going to chime in, is that so startups, most of them aren't going to go basically grow on their own. They're all looking for an exit that's going to be acquisition from probably a larger strategic. And again, when you've got someone that you're working with, like Nellie, like Bushman QC, or whoever, but if you're in a virtual QMS and you have a team that's been small company and large company, it's going to be less expensive to like integrate and quicker because it's much more flexible, and you're not like, breaking down an old system, trying to pull stuff into a different system and fit cogs in different holes. It's a lot easier and more flexible to go VQMS and then have the people who understand like, oh, here, cultural difference here. Let's plug in things over here, here, and here, gap analysis, things like that. And that also reminded me when you said the ERP and PLM, that someone who's understands not just a QMS, but how it connects with these other systems is going to have an easier time bringing you up to speed in the larger strategic company.
Well, and what's interesting is a lot of people go, oh, ERP, PLM, that's not QMS. Yes, it is. If it maintains your distribution records and the status of your equipment, that's a QMS element. Paul, you've got your hand raised. I think you were first.
Yeah. Hey, amazing, Nellie. I want to say earlier, like you said, you're not a cop, right? You're guiding people. Now you're weighing in on tech. What is the duration of your engagements with your average client?
Well, it depends. So right now, my longest client's been 5 years.
Okay, good. Now, when it comes to tools, are you offering a done for you set, and are you maintaining it, or you're making recommendations and then letting them choose what they want to work with?
So Bushman QC has a package of procedures that we implement over time at point of need, is what I call it. You don't pay for them all at once. It's like, okay, I'm in phase 1 of design control. We take these packages and I'm going to use it doc control training, and we release them. And so they're procedures in a Word format or Excel document logs or forms. So you actually implement them and you run them off of, basically VQMS is a paper system virtually. And so you have forms that you complete. We do not use a system. The only systems I use, I recommend SharePoint. It has been the easiest to adapt and manage, and DocuSign. Those are the 2 systems I start out with. The third one I really like, it's Matrix Requirements, because it manages your document requirements and risk very well. And so it pairs with a virtual system nicely. I'm a big fan of Matrix. So those are the things I kind of implement. Did I answer your question, Paul?
And then, but they're getting it on their name with their company name, their login, and then you're just managing it for them.
Yep.
Got it.
So what happens is, typical protocol is client hires Bushman QC. We implement phase 1, which is initiation. They get our doc control package, our training package, our design control package, our supplier control, risk management, and lab notebook. And the reason I start with those on initiation is one of the things a lot of engineers forget to do or think about is, hey, I've done all this desktop work. How do I document it? And so we have a virtual lab notebook they can dump all that information into, and then now that becomes part of the design control package. And they can actually reference it and they can talk about it. And, those are the things we put together for their first setup.
Got it. Powerful. Love what you're doing.
Martin, go ahead, you're next.
Right, so I'm quite interested in your views on Part 11 because I would maintain there are two issues there. One, not all documents need to be signed Part 11. Secondly, companies don't think about restricting who signs documents. They like to put their signature block on the top of the document, and they'll put everybody, including the cleaning lady, on the list. And it's like, well, you really got to think about accountability for signature here and where this document is going. And it can be much more efficient, and especially when it's a Part 11 signature, to restrict those people signing for Part 11 because they're aware of where the document is eventually going.
So interesting take, and I'm going to challenge you for a second. So if there is a document in the realm of quality systems and it's being signed, it has to be Part 11. That's the rules. That's the law. But interesting, what people don't realize, and this is like, for example, my purchasing people, some of them don't want to do DocuSign. They don't want to sign and upload. And so I say, look, the alternative to Part 11 in a virtual system is a pen and ink signature. Now, does everybody realize that if you sign with a stylus, that the FDA still considers that pen and ink? So if you take a stylus on your mouse pad and you sign a document and save it, that is still considered pen and ink. So you can actually sign that. And a lot of my purchasing people will use that method in the QMS to sign a document. Mm-hmm. Regina, you were next, I believe.
Oh, I was going to say, Nellie, you should comment. Every document control system, because Martin commented on this, having people should have a big signature matrix of exactly who signs.
Yes,
and you don't typically want to go above about 3 or 4 signatures because you lose value and you lose basically accountability in terms of people say, oh yeah, so-and-so signed it, so I think it's probably fine. So, but yeah, you want to have a very, and usually it's a couple pages long, right? Of like who.
No, mine is 1 page and we actually do the top people, but people who created quality records. So one of the things at Bushman QC that I adopted probably 10 years ago is an electronic signature form. What is that? So everybody has a pen and ink signature where everybody signs their pen and ink that they set so they can say, here's my signature for the company so everybody sees it. Well, I've adapted that to electronic signature and pen and ink form. And what that does in the body of the document, it tells them what is Part 11, why is it important, and it goes into the laws and the regulation and what is that. So it teaches them, remember about the standard, they have to understand what they're doing. Well, many people don't understand what their signature means or their electronic signature means. So this form tells them that. I'm sorry, Regina, I pointed to you. Go ahead, sorry.
I just want to add some aspect to your discussion. There is a difference between signatures regarding the legally binding meaning, and there are levels of this. Even when you have an electronic signature, whether it, for instance, can be authorized or is recognizable as authorized, stuff like that. I don't want to go too deep into this, but actually, I prefer to have the clear statement of who's responsible for a process, who's responsible to create it, to design it, to describe it, to document it, and to release it. And who gives this responsibility in his signature documents that he will be accountable for it. Yep. And so this should be something that is linked to a job description, and that is easily done in a linked system like matrix requirements, where you can put job descriptions and link that information. Otherwise, you will end up in lists that might get out of date and stuff like that. So just some thought about this, but it's not the reason why I rose my hand regarding system and tool costs. And I thinking about it, there is a rising number of regulations that comes to companies. Not only 13485 or FDA is the only one putting regulations, and then so it's more and more. And so I think an EQMS should be well selected also according to the capability of adding new frameworks, of adding regulatory frameworks, and being able to differentiate between those frameworks, but still combine information from those frameworks, because like especially equipment or infrastructure lists, most of them are using these lists. So they shouldn't have different lists then, but only have one and same for each framework. And this is something that should be considered also when choosing tools.
So one of the things that's interesting about Bushman QC is anybody can sign a quality record, but on every form we have a signature approval on the bottom, and we say, oh, engineering signs this and quality signs this. And if you create the record, you should be able to sign that record with the understanding of what your signature means. And so in the very beginning of the implementation, we explain that to people, because there's a difference between I've completed a quality record and I'm signing it, and then I'm authorizing it. So there's a complete difference on that. And we try to make sure we build that into our form so we don't have to think about it. It's built into the process.
So I want to make sure that you get through your presentation. Yeah. So let's move forward and then circle back to more questions if we can.
So I'm going to just kind of scale over training and competency, because most people kind of understand this. Really what's going on, what I want to emphasize the most is you hire somebody who's competent and flexible, who's actually a partner in the team, because when you do that, everything else falls into place quite naturally. The other thing is process documentation costs. People do not understand how deep this goes. So I kind of did an analysis of it. So let me just give you this perspective. Bushman QC for 3 clients in a 3-year period has released 3,000 documents in 3 years. That's one client was 1,200 documents, and it was 500 DCOs in 1 year that we did. We qualified 60 suppliers. We did over 200 training items of training on the procedures. We did about 20 NCRs. You know, that well is extremely deep, and people don't understand that. And if you looked at that mountain and you tried to figure out how you were going to comply, you get overwhelmed. But when you implement Bushman QC, you naturally develop that, and it happens over naturally and organically. And then time for approval and reviews. I can't tell you, I've got clients, something gets out in review, everybody's done in 24 hours. I've got other clients, it takes them 4 weeks because they're so busy doing other activities. So you want a good quality person who can manage that. One of the things at Bushman QC, we've now implemented Trello. So when I actually meet with a client, I have all these streams of activity, and we can actually put due dates on things, and we get reminders, and it's really a nice feature that we've added. Compliance and audits. Another thing people forget, especially a lot of California startups forget about, they have to be FDB registered. And so they'll be like, oh my God, I want to ship commercial product. I've registered with the FDA, let's go. And I'm like, you're in California, we now have to do an FDB registration, and we have to get set up that way. And that's another inspection. It's a pretty easy inspection, but if you forget it, I actually have one client that got a nasty letter from California saying, hey, you're shipping product out of California and you're not registered. You need to be registered in the next 30 days. So, I mean, it does happen. Notified body, you know, one of the things you need to do when you sit down to start budgeting is plan where you're going to ship your product, because that will shape your QMS. That'll shape the cost of your compliance and your regulatory requirements. If you don't understand that, hey, I'm only going to be in the US, or I want to go to Europe, or I want to go to Canada. Canada requires MDSAP. You have to be MDSAP certified to go to Canada. You need to understand that in the beginning, not at the end of like, oh, I think we're going to go here. Oh, wait a minute. Now I have to ship the whole QMS into that direction. The good thing about Bushman QC is we've driven to try and comply with all of those regulations. So you should be good to go, but you need to actually plan it in advance is the key to that.
Nellie, before you go on to the next slide, what do you mean by external standards on this slide?
So the biggest shock that happens is if you are required to be compliant to a standard, you are required to have that standard in your library so that you can demonstrate that you've read it and understand it. And some standards are expensive and some are cheap, but a lot of people do not build into their budget the purchasing of standards.
Buy them through Estonia.
Yes, exactly. Anybody who doesn't know that little small trick, I even tell my students that buy through Estonia.
And you have to buy two copies, not one.
Oh.
Otherwise, get a locked version.
Oh, good to know, Leo. Thanks.
Okay. But that's why. And then also find somebody who actually knows the standard, because one of the things people think of is like, oh, Nellie's an expert in all standards. Not true. I'm good at QMS. I'm good at, some of the risk, those things. But, each person that you interact has a specialty, and those standards are deep wells in their own mind. So you want to find an expert who knows those standards really well. And one of the things I'll do is, if you come up to me and we're doing something, I'll go, wait a minute, that standard, you want this person, you want this person. So I'm a good, what I call director of like, hey, I'm the expert there. No, I'm not the expert. Find somebody who can admit they're not the expert, because otherwise, if they constantly are the expert in everything, then what happens is you're going to get one of those DYIs. All right, the real world analysis. This is the big deal. Okay, everybody, this is your sticker shock. This is what I went and did an analysis on, and I was completely shocked. Okay, so I looked at 3 of companies over a 3-year average. All right, fractional QMS support. Now, this is an average, so there are ups and downs. If you do a full QMS where you either hire somebody to run a VQMS or your EQMS, and you're paying salary, benefits, retirement, those kind of things, you're looking at over a 3-year period, 1.3 million just for in-house resources in 3 years for quality only. And then you're going to add the sticker tag of, okay, here's my VQMS cost and here's my EQMS cost. Now the EQMS, I'm basing it off master control, which is about $30,000 a year. And remember, all your EQMSs have a start price, and every time you add a user, your price increases. A lot of people don't realize that. So that 30,000 is the start, not where you're going to end up. You can end up with 50,000 because you've got 100 users, depending on where you're at. With EQMS, with the fractional QMS support, I've noticed on average, so the full QMS is 100%. What I've noticed with most of my clients is they don't use this in the average capacity. They use this in the high capacity. Very, very few people use this in the average. So this is based on a high capacity, pushing through those 1,000 documents in a year, getting 100 people trained, 100 training items out there, suppliers qualified, equipment qualified, NCRs done. This is about the price tag. If you've noticed, you're almost saving $1 million in 3 years. What could you do with $1 million if you weren't doing a full, if you didn't hire full-time in-house? That's really where I was trying to get to with all of my data. Anybody else have any different experiences, or do you think this is about right on where you've been experiencing it?
I was just going to ask for clarification. So when you say VQMS, is that just the system itself, your virtual system? Because I see in-house resources, and I'm wondering, is that the hourly pay of Bushman QC, or is it the in-house, meaning
full-time employment?
Full-time employment of the company, or of Bushman QC, or of a mix of both?
So the in-house resources is the labor that you would do anyway, whether full-time or consultant. So that's the in-house. The VQMS is the SharePoint, it's the purchasing, the procedures, it's the DocuSign leasing. That's what that VQMS element is.
And the in-house resources could be a mix of resources that are internal or external to the company.
Correct. Contractors, consultants, contract
Yep.
employees. That's what it is, in-house resources.
Yeah, I was going to ask some similar clarification questions. I'm Ty Benson from Lean RAQA. For those of you who haven't seen me in a long time, it's been a while since I've been on one of these. Nellie, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Verna, good to see you too. Yeah, help me clarify what you're considering an in-house. So full-time QMS support, is that based off of a salaried full-time QMS employee? Do you have multiple QMS employees lumped in there? Because it's quite a big.
Usually what I've seen for all of my clients is about 3 quality people, and either full-time or consultants. That is when I say full-time, or when I'm saying full or high volume, that's usually a VP of RAQA. It's usually a quality manager and a quality specialist. And that's the model. It's three head counts. And so this is Yeah, it's 3 part-time fractional QMS supports, because one of the things people don't realize is you need somebody who's going to do the work at a lower cost, somebody who's going to manage the person doing the work, and then somebody who's going to make the strategic decisions. What they all think, if I magically hire one person, all of that gets done. And then what they don't realize is they've bottlenecked and they've slowed their QMS down.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I feel the same way in our experiences at Lean RAQA, in that you mentioned it earlier when you talked about quality resources and how resources are the biggest constraint. I totally agree. What we see is that a lot of times, if they have full-time QMS support, it's usually a really junior individual.
Yep.
And they need a lot of coaching and a lot of guidance, which we're all happy to do. But if you're a startup, sometimes, I mean, that time is money, because then it's like you're slowing down to answer questions and educate. And we love to educate. That's easy. For me, that's easy to do.
Same here.
But
well, I love to educate those who are willing to listen.
Yeah, always the caveat for that. But, with fractional QMS support, you typically are getting someone, 10 years in, 20 years in. If they're a consultant, they've been around the block, they've seen many different configurations, they're quicker to think and react and strategize. So yeah, okay, so 3 employees, that's what you've got in your bottom number. Got it.
Yeah, so the magic number, if you haven't seen on there, is 3 years, 3 employees, and 3 companies. That's kind of what that's where I've come up with my statistics. The other thing that people don't realize is they hire this junior person to push through doc control, right? I have most of my doc control people are 5 to 15 years of experience. Okay, now, and they know Bushman QC like the back of their hand, and even they make mistakes. So every DCO gets a DCO audit to make sure they aren't making mistakes. And what I found is those junior people, they get going so fast, they forget the basics. So then during an inspection, an auditor goes, oh, wait, the right approvers didn't do this. Oh, wait, this document wasn't watermarked. Oh, we forgot to do the training. So we actually do a DCO audit after every DCO, even on our experts, but yet they've hired somebody who's never done doc control thinking they're going to be able to do it successfully. Document control is the most important role in your company, not because it's technically there, but because every document and quality record goes through them. So if you don't have an eagle eye, you have a problem. Yes, Sean, you're on mute.
I think now would be an excellent time to mention your document control book that you've written.
So I have written an ebook on document control, and I will be doing a masterclass in August on document control. I don't know if you figured it out. I'm very passionate about document control. It is the cornerstone. It's one of my cornerstones. And so Sean talked me into writing an ebook. So that's coming out soon, and there'll be a masterclass.
And if you'd like a copyright ebook in the chat.
And Sean will record it so I can get it later to you guys. Any questions on my statistics? Now, I'm going to ask you, what could you do with $1 million? Testing, accelerate design control, keep your QMS here. You can actually, one of the things is we drive the bus while everybody's on it, but they get to focus on design control. That's what I like to say Bushman QC does. Okay, this is one of my biggies. I've been really thinking about this, that hidden cost of poor QMS. It is so important to think about. What people don't realize is remediation is 3 to 5 times the original cost of doing it right on average. And believe it or not, that price tag hit. I've got a client right now. He hired us. He had no documentation. He didn't realize he had to approve things, and we've been remediating it for a year. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're so expensive." I'm like, "Well, if you'd done it right the first time, we wouldn't be doing this." And so we've developed a really good relationship. But sorry, I'm diverging again. Regulatory delays. If you don't have a good QMS, you can't go to FDB. You can't get registered. You can't get your product shipped out. You can't get an FDA inspection. You won't pass. You're going to get 483s. You're going to have CAPAs. And one of the things about 483s and CAPAs is when you get a 483, you go down to root cause, but you always have to do a little extra just to prove you're actually addressing it. You have to go a little further. Like if you have a CAPA and you've got root cause and you do the first corrective action in it, you're usually pretty good. But with an FTD, you've got to go down a couple more layers because they're looking to make sure you've addressed root cause, all the interactions between the quality system, you're not causing anything. So it costs more money to do those CAPAs. Again, I said the 3 to 5 more times expensive. Compliance gaps in eroding investor and customer trust. complaints. If you have a poor quality management system that didn't catch something in your design control that ends up as an NCR, that turns into a complaint, that turns into a field action, you have a problem. We actually had a client, class 1, and he'd never released his labels. So we were in the process of releasing those labels. We put a quality plan, we had all the document, and then he grabbed the wrong label and he released it. Guess what we had to do? A field notification that it was an error. So it's this little startup company who was trying to do the right thing, grabbed the wrong label, and we had an error in it. And now he had to send out to 1,000 emails. And then we had to do that 4 times. Then we had to do mailings because not everybody got them. So that's kind of that that compliance erosion of trust, right? Teams are pulled from innovation. We work really hard to be your partner, to be your training person, without interfering with design control. And most, engineers, they hate doing design quality because they got to document what they thought. Well, guess what? Let me sit in an interview with you. Let me record you, and then I can turn that into a document for you. And then now you're done. You can go do design control again. Missed certification delays. I had a client who had somebody who was running their entire, FDB and FDA registration. And then when that person left, he forgot all about his FDB registrations, didn't register for 3 years. So then when we figured it out, we had to write a letter oh my God, we forgot. And thank God we had an FDA inspection, so they didn't have to do an inspection to re-register us. So kind of, those things. That's where the missed certifications. You need somebody who has a schedule. I have to do an internal audit. I have to do management review. I have to register. You have to have somebody who plans. All right, sorry, I'm getting chatty. Okay, think about it. Fractional QMS, 60% less than the full-time hire. It can accelerate your market entry by $250K on average. Your net ROI is 3 times the cost of savings in the first year, and smart QMS investments maximize speed, savings, and compliance. Key takeaways: right size your QMS. Everybody wants to put a Boston Scientific QMS in, but you don't have 1,000 people at a site to run the QMS. You've got to think about it. If you have 5 employees, make your system for 5 employees. Reduce your cost and protect your startups from regulatory surprises. And I did it. I got to the last slide. So here, are you ready to start your QMS journey? We're ready to help you. So avoid the cost, accelerate your time, pay for expertise, and contact us. And let us show you how you can save $1 million in 3 years. So any questions?
Yeah, it's Sean. So big question for everybody. Nellie is faced with the challenge of educating consumers, clients, as are many of you, with understanding quality challenges and costs, and why to do business with her. While taking this question a little bit bigger, why is there such a strong misunderstanding in the medtech industry of quality management systems when they've been around for such a long time? I don't really understand this. Perhaps that could be the question of the week that we turn into the article. So if you put your answer in the chat, or you email to me at sean@veer2b2b.com, which I will put in the chat, then what I would like to do is publish an article today which says, this is what we talked about today. These are the things that we covered today. And then, end with this, why is quality so misunderstood?
That's a huge question, Sean.
Well,
huge. That would take up an entire hour of every one of us throwing in and saying, well, here's my horror story and here's my horror story. And you wouldn't get to the root cause of it, except there's no education on this in college or engineering or anything. So start there.
That's a good answer. There's no education on this,
Wow,
no formal education.
It took me 6 months to write this ebook that I'm going to be sending out. God, that might take me 5 years. And I just focused on a corner of the concept. So I think, maybe that's my next ebook, Sean.
Well, in Germany, we do have education on quality management systems and also education on regulatory affairs, especially meant for medical device manufacturers.
So one of the things that I'm playing with, And that is, you know, there's all these certification learning places to go. I'm actually putting together a learning model, and I'm calling it Synergy QA Academy, that is the common sense day-to-day quality stuff. And it's like I'm putting that training together because that's what I feel is missing. It's like that attention to detail. So I'm it's a vision, I'm working on it, and it's all because people go do all the certification courses, they understand the standards, but my God, do you know how to do a training record? Do you know how to do a doc control? Do you know how to do the basics of detail? And how do you figure out, how do you review a procedure? You know, a lot of people don't know how to do that. Like I'm putting together those kinds of learning courses of how do you become really good at your job without 10 years of experience or 15 years of experience.
I like that. That's going to be a good tool to look back on.
It's a slow path, but I am building it, and Marion's helping me. We're kind of working on it together.
Perfect.
So I think that one of the major reasons is that people don't see how quality benefits each and every individual in an organization.
Yep.
So you can say, what is a QMS? What is the return on investment? Great, that's great for communicating to executive management, but that's all it does. It's like, oh, we'll have a QMS tick box. So what you need to do is you need to say, well, how does this benefit product management?
Yep.
How does this benefit each and every individual in the organization? Because that's what makes QMS a business enabler. It's not what happens if you don't have a QMS. It's how does it help you in your everyday tasks, even if you're not executing an SOP or filling out a template.
So I actually have another meeting. I do apologize. Sean, will you copy the chat for me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Regina. I just realized I have another. Oh, actually, no, hang on. Actually, no, I don't have another meeting. Sorry, I got canceled.
Okay, well, I have another meeting. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up in the next 3 minutes. What I would like everyone to do is to make sure that you're subscribed to medtechleadingvoice.com. It's on LinkedIn. It comes once a week. It's very easy to handle. To consider joining MedTech Leading Voice Exchange. We're building a community. This is something that you can contribute to, something real. Next is what else? A bunch of webinars coming up. Next week's speaker is actually going to be Regina Preisling.
Okay.
Awesome.
Regina, what are you going to be talking about? Refresh my memory because I'm drawing a blank.
I'm trying to have a discussion with you about how to digitalize documents.
Yes.
Like maybe I will have to go through Nellie's ebook before doing that.
Now, if you want to have 30 minutes with me to talk more about this, go to my website. There's my calendar link, and I can put time on
maybe 30 minutes won't be enough.
Well, the nice thing about it is you can start with 30 minutes, and if we go over, I usually don't book anything right after, so I can go longer.
Okay.
Sean, how do you save the chat so I can make sure everybody gets their email, or do you do that?
Yeah, I'll save the chat and send it to you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so if anybody has any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. Do you know how to get a hold of Nellie? Nellie, did you put your email into everyone?
I will do it right now. You can actually go in here, or you can go to bushmanqc.com and put time on my calendar.
It's Nellie@bushmanqc.com, right?
Yeah.
QC.com. I hope you enjoyed today's call. And we will see you next week. Bring a friend, please.
And Sean, quick, I put a link in there. We're doing an investor conference next week in San Diego. It's for medical device startups, and it is an amazing incubator called Aquilius. So I put the link in there, and you've probably seen my posts all over LinkedIn. So whoever can make it, you're going to have a lot of fun. There's access to a lot of money. So it's a good day for startups. Thank you, Sean.